I wish I was in space.
I was just going to say that. Jen in space. Like, that's the part where, like, I mean, okay, listen, I know it's all gallows humor, but, you know, there's, like, this asteroid they've been keeping an eye on.
Yeah, it's getting closer and more likely to hit us.
Everyone's like, yes. Or, you know, like...
What if we're rooting for the asteroid?
We're rooting for the asteroid now. Just, or, like, or it's like, I think about all of the movies where it's like, you know, we fight off a band of evil aliens who want to come.
We send Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis to blow up an asteroid.
Sure. Or, you know, Bill Pullman.
Don't waste your time.
Yeah, like, just, I think anybody could be better off. All of us, probably, with an alien overlord right now. So, yeah.
Some of these aliens we read this week, yes, for sure.
100%.
100%.
So everybody, I guess we should introduce ourselves. Maybe we should just like stop bantering and go right to...
Welcome everyone to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop.
Such as it is.
A romance reader and reader, really. Romance reader, editor, and critic. I'm back on it.
You're a critic now. We're back to being a critic. Jen's back to being a critic.
Well, with a beehive. I really refuse to call it a Substack because Substack is for Nazis. So I've been trying to really like not say like a non-Substack, but Beehive, nobody knows what it is. So I'm just going to say I have a newsletter now and you can subscribe to it.
We'll put a link to it in show notes. If you want to hear Jen talk about like the more challenging pieces of being a romance reader, that is where you can go because we keep it tight and we keep it upbeat here at Fated Mates.
Right.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Despite beginning this episode with, hey, maybe the asteroid will hit us.
Okay, so this week's episode is Space Romance, which we did back in season 1.
Oh my God, was it that long ago? It has been
a long
So is it like
time.
a 14-minute episode? I mean, they were never 14
They were never
minutes,
that long, but it was longer. But I mean, it really was like really far back there.
Okay.
And originally when we had like talked about doing this again...
I gotta pull up that episode while we talk because...
I mean, it was basically... Look at it. It was basically Ice Planet Barbarians and Emmy Chandler.
Oh, yeah. Emmy Chandler's great. And I didn't put her in here because...
You were like, surely
I figured
yes.
We've talked about her. And you know we have this new rule, everyone.
Yeah, we're doing better.
Our alien overlord, Eric, has a new rule for us. And actually, every time we talk about it, he then, after he edits the episode, comes into my office and he says, you know, I didn't tell you how to read all new books. I just said, like, hey, maybe we could talk about books.
And look, we are doing this because he was right, and it's fine, and I'm woman enough to say it.
We're getting over it.
But in this case, I was super excited as everybody, because I've already talked about this one book, Chaos by Constance Fay, like 7 times because I loved it so much. And I was like, I love sci-fi. Can we like go back into a sci-fi, like another space episode essentially?
Yes, but here's the thing. You said to me sci-fi and I heard space. And then you were like, what if it, like, then you suggested like some other thing that was like real sci-fi, dystopian, like future. And I was like, hang on a second. I thought
we were doing space.
I'm prepping literal people in the universe, like away from Earth. And now, so who knows what you're going to get today, everybody? Well, I'll tell you straight up from me, you're going to get.
Me too. It's
aliens in space.
Because you know what? I actually... dystopian's a little too real right now. I was like, that's no kind of escape.
I don't want to do dystopian. I don't want it.
So read Hold by Claire Kent, and apparently she has a whole new series, and Claire Kent is your dystopian
Adriana's into
queen,
it.
Right? So anyway, I was like, oh, okay, like let's space, great. Let's go back and do space. And so I looked back.
This is back when you were doing like serious show notes too.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Like there was so much more
going
on.
There was a time, you guys, when we didn't phone it in at all.
Yeah. Now I'm just like, I said a couple things here.
Wait, but I do feel like we have to note Sweet Starfire.
Yes.
Because of course we do. Because listen.
This was June of 2019. It was a long.
No.
Yes.
Then it wasn't season 1.
Yes. 2018, our first episode.
Was our first episode in 20? Oh my God. It's 2025. You guys, it's rough out here. It's rough for me. Okay. Here we go. The primordial space romance is Jane Ann Krentz's Sweet Starfire. And This is a classic Jane Ann Krentz setup. This lady loves a telepath in all
forms.
in all forms. Yeah. Every one of her series, every one of her pen names at some point like brings you around to telepaths. And so the heroine is like born into a society where everybody is a telepath except her. And so she is an outsider, like she's cast off from the society. And Teague is like a scavenger delivery guy. He's like Han Solo.
Sure.
And you can hire him to do anything, to collect anything throughout space. And basically, she is on the hunt for some like magic fix to her telepathy. And she wants to pay him for a ride, basically. A normal ride out into the universe to like help figure out her issues and sort her issues. And she gets another kind of ride.
I know it was coming.
And then that's that. So that's Sweet Starfire. And listen, the cover now, thumbs down. The original cover has Fabio. No, it's not Fabio. The original cover is just like two people. She has gravity-defying hair and gravity-defying breasts.
Correct.
And there's like a comet on the cover.
Correct.
It does not miss. So enjoy yourselves going to look for that.
She really does have gravity-defying breasts, doesn't she?
Her breasts are like, they're so like buoyant. It's because obviously gravity is a different thing on whatever planet they're on.
The best thing about these is like no gravity, right?
Not even for your boobs.
Right. So here's I want to like revisit kind of like one of my favorite things now is, I don't know if anybody else cares, but I care. And it's my fucking podcast. So sorry, everybody, you're gonna have to listen to me. Is I'm really always interested now too, and I don't think we did this as much, is like, how do you, like, what were the parameters and how did you tackle it? And like, then like also kind of like, what were the pitfalls? And so I think one of the things is back in 2019 when we did this, there was Ice Planet Barbarians. And in the intervening 6 years, there have been a lot of things ripping off Ice Planet Barbarians. And some of them, I straight up was like, oh no, I can't really do this. And so I had like kind of started developing a little list of things that were like,
now wait, here's my question. Yeah. Is it, you couldn't do it because it felt too close to Ice Planet Barbarians?
No, because I think,
because I have like a very close sibling.
Yeah, no, it's not this.
On my list.
There were a couple things that I was like, okay, I think we're going through some things. And
you mean personally? Yes.
Yes. And so is romance.
You and me? Or you mean...
And romance writ large. When we're going through things, romance is going through things. Because it's like the world's most sensitive tuning fork to the mood of American readers, romance readers, right? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. In Ice Planet Barbarians, which we are not going to talk about except to say this, these women were kidnapped from Earth by some bad aliens and then land on a planet with some good aliens, and they all live happily ever after. But I found a lot of fucking books, Sarah, where they are kidnapped from Earth and enslaved. These like pretty white ladies are kidnapped from Earth and enslaved by the bad aliens, and I was like, I'm gonna have to pass on that.
No.
If anybody was enslaved, if a white woman was enslaved. I was like, I'm going to have to say no to that. Uh-huh. And so I just found myself thinking that there were like quite a few of like that kind of prototype happening. And I was like, I can't. Insane colonialist fantasies are actually running rampant through our government right now. I just don't need that in my fiction. And I think the other thing that I also personally sort of said no to, although it is really a hallmark of Ice Planet Barbarians, but I just was like, I don't really personally right now want to read it, was like the gender dynamic of like, our society is dying and we need women. Because I was like, I also was like a little too real. She's just an incubator. So I personally had to like, if there was even like a snippet of that, I was like, and I'm moving on. And I found myself going back to books that I had read in 2015 or whatever, and was like, oh, whoa. So anyway, those were just like some little parameters for me.
Well, I am the opposite, because I was just like, fuck this, the crazier the better.
Listen, I got
was
some
my
of those.
vibe. That was my vibe. And listen, I've got one that you are going to immediately run and buy.
Okay, I really pitched this topic to Sarah because I love this Constance Fay series called Uncharted Hearts, right? So I really also was like, I'm going to read some I found myself putting them mentally on a little continuum from what I'm calling serious sci-fi to slutty sci-fi. Right?
Okay. I did the same, where I was like,
Right.
okay, I'm going to go from like a sci-fi book I would happily
Sure.
a sci-fi romance I would happily hand to somebody who is like, I really like sci-fi.
Correct.
To one-handed read.
Correct.
So
Yes. And so
we all are on the same page.
yeah,
on
I
this.
think I just want to be really clear. Like there was some slutty sci-fi for sure. And I
there is
enjoyed that.
a lot of slutty sci-fi out there.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that
What? Now-
I only have 4 books to recommend today,
Okay, I
because
have 50.
one of the problems that I have is that I got trapped in one of these series. So I was, and then I forgot what I was doing.
So I think that is I think that's the case. Now, here's the other thing, though. I will tell you, some of the more serious sci-fi stuff I found was more like women's fiction in space.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, don't you feel a little bit like the Jessie Mihalik
A little bit.
influence?
Yeah, for sure. Right? A little
Or
bit.
yeah.
I mean, listen, I think they're romances, but for sure,
Of course.
some of them are, kind of the hallmarks of it's heroine
Yeah,
only
but when you're
point of view.
fucking an alien, I feel like aliens. Here's my thing. I feel like aliens. They exist in romance not to make us,
Yeah,
They don't lead us to commercial fiction. They lead us to
further down to slutty sci-fi.
Yeah, into the deep end of the romance pool.
It's like monster romance.
Because why write an alien if not
Yeah, he's got a tail
To-
that he can, do shit with.
a suction tail and
Correct.
yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, and what's funny is I have 5 books. I forgot.
Okay.
I have my other book, which is sort of riding this line, is we're going to talk about it, but it's Kimberly Lemming. We'll get to
okay.
it. And her alien book is much hotter than her other books.
Interesting.
And I think it's because aliens.
Sure.
So here's my thing is, so let's
Listen,
get
no
into
one's
the
ever
real,
banned a book in
intelligent-
space, Sarah. Everyone likes to fuck in space.
No one's ever banned a book in space. Put it on a t-shirt, sell it to every sci-fi romance writer.
Sure.
And join Authors Against Book Bans, my friends.
I mean, Authors Against Book Bans is if we just relocate to space, problem solved. Go ahead. Tell David Levithan I told him so. Be like, Jen's cracked the code. Everyone likes to get down in space.
Exactly. There's no time for book banning in space because you're too busy meeting aliens with interesting parts.
Everyone's got a blaster. That's fine. Okay.
So here's my thing. Do we think, is it the buoyancy of space and the lack of gravity with breasts that makes space books sexier? No. But what do we really think we're doing with aliens? It is impossible to suggest that these books are not sexier with an alien.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I think for me, it's really the opportunity for, the slutty sci-fi, the slutty romance.
You and me against the world becomes you and me against the universe.
Yeah, but also just you get to leave. You've literally left Earth and it's moral policing behind. Literally. And so
I like it.
I think that is the big, you get to just, and I think for romance writers especially, You know, I think it's always really interesting to hear people talk about the way that they think about like world building. And it's always, of course, like in the context though of our world. Duh. And I think that like, so I think if you're writing a space romance, you are literally, you get to start without any of that. Right. And so I would imagine that's part of it. But also I would imagine too, it's like a little bit of like, start as you mean to go on. Like, right? Like everybody already has blazed the slutty sci-fi path. And so why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Agreed.
Right? If you wanted to write about like repressed aliens, I mean, like the Amish alien planet, I just don't know that anybody really needs that. You could just put that here.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
Okay. In fantasy romance, the world is like a character. Right? Like you have like people like walking through and it's like, you know, they created creatures and all this, right? And in sci-fi romance, the world is like, that's not the case because space is a void. And so I also think that it's like really, you really are like ramping up people's interpersonal relationships. Because like I don't
right.
Does that make
so
sense?
Like if you're on a planet,
yeah,
like Ice Planet Barbarians, the planet. It's actually you're right because Ice Planet Barbarians, like the planet is ice.
Yeah,
like there's nothing to look at or do.
No.
It's just ice. And I think, and space is space.
Yeah,
I do feel like again the Lemming sort of is out of it's slightly different.
Yeah.
But I probably wouldn't if we weren't doing a space episode.
Right.
I would categorize this differently than space.
I think there's a lot of like, we're on a spaceship. Right? And I mean, it's like, imagine if every single fucking romance was just people in like an astro van, right? Like you're on the ship. You know, what else do you need to know? And so I think in a weird way, I don't know. I'm like really, I really found myself thinking about like the kinds of plots that you get in space romance or in, you know, sci-fi romance, because either it's like, I'm a bounty hunter, so I'm just like bouncing around from world to world chasing somebody, or it's like I am on a planet and it's like, what's it called again, where you have like, it's like royal family drama. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like a lot of space romance also just, it's like, if you like it, it's like really falling into like very specific kinds of stories. Whereas like with fantasy romance, and I mean, I'm sure this is not true, right? I think in like sci-fi, there's like lots of options, but because we're like really just sticking with space, I think there's just a couple big like archetypes of stories.
I also think that there are some big buckets, right? There's crash landed on a planet, sci-fi. There's spaceship sci-fi. There's like alien, just sort of general alien, like they met in the bar in Star Wars.
Correct.
Sci-fi, right? Like we're all just hanging around and aliens are normal.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's set enough in the future that that's what it feels like.
Right.
Right. And then there's the kind of, then there are like the ones where it's like on Earth, but the alien is science. Like there's kind of, the alien is trapped in a basement and they're studying him kind of.
Right.
Which there are more of those than you would think.
Yes.
So, yeah. And I just think it's... Oh, and then there's Prison Planet, which was a big thing.
Right.
When, like, Claire Kent and Emmy Chandler wrote Prison Planets, then there was, like, this rash of Prison Planet books.
Right. Well...
But now that's not of interest.
Yeah.
But honestly, you guys, we're not going to talk about Emmy Chandler, but let me just say... Those books are great. Yeah. Those Prison Planet
and I
books.
found myself really thinking about, like, okay, back to my whole, like, I didn't want to read about it. Like, kidnapped was fine. You got kidnapped, fine. But, like, enslaved, I was like, I'm not doing it, right? Because kidnapped is often, like, I'm going to break out. It's like there's like a sense of agency
that's
to
the
it,
story.
right? Like that's the story. And even like I was kidnapped and like now I'm in like the prison planet, you know, whatever, right? Like, yeah, I mean, I like some of those too, but I don't know. So anyway, I had a great time. I read a ton of books. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Yvette Dioro, author of Mind to Match.
Jen, this, of course, is just hitting all of my pleasure centers. The heroine of this book, Senora Ramos, has built her career on the idea that love can be gamed, right? It is a business. She is a matchmaker, and it can be crafted and calculated and executed. And if you are a professional, you can make a perfect match. Now, she's given the opportunity to prove herself as one of the nation's top matchmakers. But the test that she has to pass is, can she match Enzo Flores with his perfect match? Enzo is a very talented singer who is on his way to rock stardom, except he needs one kind of extra piece of flair to push him into stardom and to make him somebody that the world is tempted to follow and eager to know more about. And that piece of flair, let's be honest, is a relationship. So that said, his team has hired Senora to be a part of this matchmaking experience, to do the matchmaking and find him the perfect match and really launch him into PR like stardom. And he's pissed about it because he thinks his music should stand on its own. That's the whole game, isn't
Adorable
it? Not
Enzo.
in 2025, Enzo. It's cute. So these two are spending time together. They're like navigating life on tour. They are starting to like really get to know each other under the auspices of finding him the perfect match. But what happens, Jen, when the matchmaker just might be that perfect match?
I love it.
I love a rock star romance.
Okay, so in order to celebrate this first book in a new series, Yvette is doing something super cool, which is you can head over to her Instagram, and she is doing a kind of a challenge where she is doing a give back giveaway. So donate to a local food bank and tag and follow her, and she'll pick a few of those folks from the tag, donate a match essentially in their honor to that food bank, get it, Mind to Match, and send them a copy of the book. So you could totally participate in that. I know I'm going to. The book is also available in Kindle Unlimited. So everybody, please check out Mind to Match. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken, I think, to that Instagram post, where that way we can support this really cool idea of romance giving back. We love it. And I love to see a matchmaker romance with a rock star. Hello. So thanks to Yvette for sponsoring this week's episode. The first book I actually want to talk about. So everybody has heard me talked about Chaos by Constance Fay, which is the book where she goes down to a prison planet and she the guy is like a super soldier. And so I talked about this in like the preview episode. I recommended it to V.E. Schwab. And so I love that one. And then because I have no fear, I went back and read the second book, even though I have not yet read the first. And that one's called Fiasco. And in Fiasco, it's like this, there, again, another real common thing in these books is that there's like these big, like imperial families. So the Pierce family are the bad guys, and they're the bad guys in Chaos. And there's the same bad guys in Fiasco. And the main character, her name is Sin, is a bounty hunter, and she has this really tragic backstory, which is she grew up on a planet where it was like an ocean, and everybody lives on like a trawler, it's this huge planet-wide trawler that like goes up and down the planet based on like where things are growing. And her cousin was abducted by what was the first person abducted by a man who has become a famous abductor of children called the Abyssian abductor, because what he does is if he doesn't get paid, he throws the kids into like an ocean abyss and like drowns them. But if
Yikes.
Exactly, but if he does get paid, he like lets them go. And so at the beginning of this book, Sin is like, it's really funny. Like she like is going to do a bounty, and she ends up like meeting the like kind of interrupting the bad guys. He's having sex with someone else, and so he's like, you know, I'm coming for you and I know who you are. And then she like rescues this like little lizard that eats metal. I mean, it's just like kind of like it.
Okay.
I really liked like how funny this whole opening scene was. And then she gets this job that's essentially like another one of these rich families. A woman who's like, I had a secret daughter, and the abductor has her. The Abyssian abductor has her. And I know that you have a connection, and I want you to go find my daughter. And I'm going to pay you this insane amount of money. And so in order to do this, she has to go back on the Calamity, which is like the spaceship. She kind of knows these people and kind of sneak back on. And Micah Aurora is the like the medic on board. And, you know, they are super attracted to each other. And so they kind of like get wrapped up together in like the search for this Abyssian abductor. And the thing that I thought was a clever conceit is Carmichael, the bad guy, Carmichael Pierce, the bad guy, contacts her and is like, I know that you are searching for this lost girl, and I know you're doing with Micah, and he is wanted by my family, so you're going to have to turn him in. So she essentially is like she's going to be forced to essentially betray this man that she is really interested in. Even though they are like a team. So there's like lots and lots of like really interesting layers going on. And then I also think one of the other things I really like is Sin has a universe-wide badass reputation because she spaced a whole ship of bad guys, which means essentially like sent them all into space and you just drop dead instantaneously. And we learn that like she herself has been out in space without like a helmet on, and it has so traumatized her that she like can't sleep. And so like there's just, I don't know, like tons and tons of really good layers. I was really pleased by the ending of this book, and I'm actually going to write about it on my Beehive because I thought it's probably the best grand gesture I've ever read.
Oh, that is a big statement.
It is a big statement. And I don't typically care for grand gestures. It's not something I really find myself like orienting myself towards that. But this one was really good. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll write about why it was really good. And it's obviously a huge spoiler, so I'm not going to get into it here. But hopefully in the next week or two, I'll write about that by the time this is out. So
cool.
Yeah, so that's Fiasco. So I loved it, and I love chaos, and now I'm going to go backwards and read Calamity.
You're a chaos reader is what you are.
Fine.
Okay. I want to talk about Beth Revis and the Chaotic Orbits series, which is the most sci-fi of the books, like the most serious sci-fi of the books that I have read. So this is a 3-book series, and it follows the same characters through all 3 books. And the 3rd book isn't out yet. So I am trusting that we are going to be delivered the real, like, final HEA at the end of this, because I am in it. I'm in it to win it. So the first book, Full Speed to a Crash Landing, is a novella. It is the whole series is like a broad space heist.
Okay.
So you can tell Beth really loves Star Wars. Like that, this is really deeply embedded into this. Anyway, Ada, our heroine, in the beginning of Full Speed to a Crash Landing, is like drifting in space. She's in what I envision is the Millennium Falcon, like a real scavenger ship that she's all alone. She has nobody in there with her. She is a scavenger, and she has been sent to like she's taken a job, or there's like a reason why she is like out in the middle of like empty space, orbiting kind of around a planet, a small planet, where a crash has taken. We're sort of led to believe that there was another spaceship crash there, and she was the first scavenger to get to it and scavenge the content. She's like a metal and like basically like she scavenges metal and then sells it.
Okay.
So, but bad news, because something has gone wrong with her ship. She is just drifting out there in space, and she's on like her last 5% of oxygen, and she's going to die. Except at a distance, there is another ship, and she can tell that it is there. Like her ship can see it. And she keeps sending these kind of messages to this other ship, and she's like, I'm dying. Like,
come get me.
Are you there? Like, and international space law, according to this world building, it suggests that like if you are in proximity to a ship like this, you are required to go save the people on board. So this like handsome voice finally comes over the transom and is like, are you for real? Like, is this for real? And she's like, yes, it's fucking for real. I'm dying. And so like look, this is a great exercise in a book that begins in the exact right place. Because you're like instantly like, oh shit, like she's losing oxygen. She's going to die in this like floating in space. And it's really sad. There's this moment where she sort of thinks to herself like, I'll just be out here.
Yeah.
I'll just be like
floating.
Trash in space, right? Mm-hmm. And no one will come for me and no one will miss me, and it's just me alone in the world. And like
that's intense. Yeah,
and it feels like, wow, you feel alone in the world while you're on Earth. Try being in a spaceship, right? Anyway, long story short, she gets saved. She wakes up like with the Benz or whatever on a government vessel, like a Earth government vessel, captained by like some difficult person, but like co-captained or lieutenant captained or whatever, second in command, this guy Ryan White, who is like hot as fuck, like stern as fuck. And he is and so like it becomes pretty clear that this government vessel has also been sent out to this crashed ship to find something. And they don't, like, Ada doesn't know. It's all, like, from Ada's POV, like, she doesn't know what they're after. But they know Ada's been down on the ground there. And it's, like, a new planet. So what's really fascinating about this first book is, like, Beth is really layering in so much sci-fi stuff. Like, you feel like she tells you about the ship. She tells you about the planet, which is, like, birthing itself. There are volcanoes all over it. Like, she's really cares about the sci-fi-ness of this universe, which is really nice. Like that doesn't actually happen a ton in sci-fi romance. Like often it is like they crash landed and the planet is icy and now they bang, right? Like, but Beth is doing something very differently. So this kind of like the novella trots along. They start to discover that like they're both keeping secrets from each other, but the banter is top notch. And then the novella ends on like a hardcore cliffhanger, but congratulations, everybody. You can dive immediately into the second book, which is How to Steal a Galaxy, where Ada is now like working with a rebel group that has like hired her to do some more stealing. And this second book is really about like climate, eco-terrorism, like the sort of grief that is coming to pass around like what's happening to Earth in this like future time. Felt very like important in a lot of ways, this storyline, despite the fact that it's still full of like all this great banter, because Ada is sent down into this like to this charity event, and she goes there to steal something, and well, she goes there ostensibly to find Ryan, and Ryan has sort of it becomes clear that Ryan's like teed up this whole event knowing that Ada will be there to steal stuff. And so he is trying to like still be stern and like do his job, and he's going to catch her in the act and arrest her for being a scavenger. What he's not expecting is she intends to kidnap him and get the hell out of there, and like pull him into her like rebel
Amazing
group.
Amazing.
And it is really fun. And so, like, first of all, I love the flipping of the script, that she does the kidnapping. He's not expecting it. I will say these books are very like sexy in thought, but they are not sexy on page. And so you should just know these are not one-handed reads. We are on that continuum as well, as far as I'm concerned. I just want to say, and then the final book in this series comes out April 8th, which is Last Chance to Save the World. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Amy Spalding, author of On Her Terms.
So in this, we have a sapphic romance about a woman who is pretty late in life coming out, which I think will be really appealing. Clementine has like just broken up with a boyfriend, and she's 36, and she just realizes she doesn't want to be single forever, and maybe it is time for her to experience some new things. So she and her dog groomer, Chloe, enter into a fake dating situation where they are going to go to Clementine's parents' anniversary party and Chloe's friend's wedding. And the two of them spend a lot of time together, even though Chloe has been out forever and Clem is just kind of like, I don't even really know what I'm doing. So the attraction between them grows stronger and is starting to feel very real. But what if Clem is just right? But Chloe is kind of like, I don't know if I just want to be somebody's like fake date, right? So they have to figure out real feelings in this fake dating world. And also, this is a book that has received some great reviews, including Ashley Herring Blake called this a gem of a romance.
Well, that is a great endorsement. And listen, I'll just tell you, Amy Spalding's books are so fun and really great reads. So if you're looking for a queer romance, a sapphic romance, a romance about people late in life coming out and discovering who they are and what they want, and one with a big found family, this one is for you. You can read On Her Terms right now in print, ebook, or audiobook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Amy Spalding for sponsoring this week's episode.
Let me talk about Space Deputy by Jenny Schwartz. Now, everybody,
Space Deputy.
I'm going to tell you something, which is okay, so this is a book. I read the first book, and then it's like a series of 4. And it's kind of barely a romance, but I really like the main character, so I was really invested to keep reading, even kind of like once I figured it out. And it's not that there's like not a romance. It's not that there's like, she's not interested in somebody, but it's just like very easy, right? So anyway, basically here's why I loved it. Okay, so in Space Deputy, which, come on, that's the greatest thing ever, right? The main character's name is, it is the Interstellar Sheriff series. Okay. Her name is Selma. And what happens is she has come from a real, like, I don't like backwards, like kind of piece of shit planet, like the Rock planet or whatever. Or like the Rock, whatever. It literally is called that. And but she's like was super smart and really talented. And so she ends up going to like the Galactic Justice Academy, where she was the valedictorian. Like, she kicked everybody's ass. She worked really hard. She was really great. But what happens at the beginning is that it's like graduation day. And on graduation day, as you graduate from the Galactic Justice Academy, you are assigned like your role. So like essentially, it's like going to West Point, right? You have to put in a certain number of years of work to like pay off your education. And typically the valedictorian would get a really prime job. And instead she is going to be sent to the saloon sector. Right?
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
she is like really pissed because she basically understands that the message is like, you might come here and best everybody, but we in the end will still beat you, right? Like, and you're never going to be the equal to any of us. So, get your ass out to this loser sector. And the person that she's going to work with there is the sheriff's name is Max. And she's like, they won't even put her on like a fast ship there. She's like on the slowest ship. You know what I mean? And she's like, this all sucks. So she starts doing some research and realizes that the saloon sector is so like isolated that it's like one of the only places in the universe where she will not have to, like, she'll essentially be able to like work her 40 hours a week as the space deputy and then be able to like do like extra work. And so she's like, fine, I will figure out a way to like take on and so what she like figures out that she can do is be like an information broker. And so, she basically gets there and, she goes to Max's office and is kind of expecting him to be a jerk. And it turns out that he's actually a really good guy and he knows her brother. And she kind of tells, and this part's really cool. His ship has an AI called Lon. Her name of the ship is the Lonesome, and Lon is the name of like the AI that runs the ship. And then he has another AI that's like a human that should be just like a battle robot, but instead is like clearly like beyond, like has feelings and stuff. And so she is like kind of puzzling over like, how can this space deputy have enough money to have like the most advanced AI technology, right, I've ever seen. And so she's kind of both like really curious about what's going on there and also like learning her job as a space deputy. And then basically like it's really cute. Like Lon and Harry, that's the other one, like essentially like set these two up together. And he's like, Max is like, it turns out I actually really like you. And like, bam, that's the romance. But it really is, I don't know. It just was like it was really cute. And like I said, I really, really loved Selma's character, because one of the things that was very interesting to me is as she interacts with different aliens and different people, they're kind of like, why are you acting this way? You're not in school anymore. And she really has to, like, you really see someone transitioning essentially from being a student to being a worker. And I don't know, I just thought it was really, I really liked it. So I thought it was really fun. And there are 4 more books there are 4 books total in the series: Space Rodeo, Space Spectre, and Space Baby, because clearly she and Max have a baby by the 4th book. And so, and these are all in Kindle Unlimited and they were really fun. So that's Space Deputy by Jenny Schwartz.
I'm going to talk about Kimberly Lemming. I got abducted by aliens and now I'm trapped in a rom-com is Kimberly Lemming's book. And we know Kimberly Lemming because her book, That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf, came out last year, I think, and was very, very fun. You can get that on Kindle Unlimited if you're a KU subscriber. You can get it wherever, but it's also on KU right now. The heroine of this book, Dorothy, is... and it's like a little bit of a Wizard of Oz retelling. It's clearly Wizard of Oz coded, and I'm going to explain why. So, Dory is a PhD in wildlife biology, and she crash lands. She doesn't crash land. She is like out studying meerkats, and she gets sucked up by like an alien ship beam, right? And then she is she's out. I should also qualify that when she is out studying the meerkats, she is almost nearly attacked by a lion, and the alien beam sucks up the lion into a ship. So these are like bad aliens that they have been abducted by, and Dory and this lion who now can speak and whose name, of course, is Toto.
Of course.
They like steal an escape pod. They get out and she realizes like, oh shit, I can't drive an escape pod.
You're a virgin who can't drive.
Exactly. Okay. And they crash land on an alien planet, which is inhabited by like giant frogs, a dinosaur, many dinosaurs, several dinosaurs, and multiple hot people. And it's going to be important that there are multiple of them. So she crash lands on the planet. The dinosaurs are coming for her and this now talking lion, who, by the way, is very fun to read. Like, this is not a serious sci-fi book. This is a very fun, funny sci-fi.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the prior book, like I said, like, it was sexy, but it was not sexy, very sexy. And this book has, well, we're going to get to it. So she and this new talking lion are nearly attacked by a dinosaur, but they are saved by a guy, an alien, whose name is Sol, S-O-L, or Saul. And Saul immediately clocks Dory as his mate, like fated mate. Mm-hmm. So they start to like traipse through this like jungle planet, because that's where they are now, and to find like safety, security, whatever. And along the way, this like, and Saul is like, you are like my fated mate, and he's like, I'm going to protect you. Like, I'm kind and gentle, and I'm like, he's the good one. And then they stumble upon another guy whose name is Locke, L-O-K, and he is like 100% like grumpy, stern daddy, right? And he's like, oh, hang on a second. I'm pretty sure she's my mate too. And what is a girl to do, Jen?
I hope it's give them both a test run, and maybe at the same time.
Together. So this ends up being like, this is way hotter than the first one.
Yeah.
It has like the Omegaverse girlies will be happy because there's nodding in this one, but there's also like, this is a real threesome book. Like, these three, this is a triad. They're going to all end up together. And it's like very twisty turny. It's like a big adventure novel. And it's them basically having to all like survive on this dinosaur planet. All while this very human PhD and her talking lion are allowed, like, find their way, coming to terms with the fact that, like, they might not be able to get back to Earth, except the opportunity, when the opportunity arises, what's she going to do? Because these aliens, there are two of them. And they have like suction tails and stuff, ridged things,
obviously
suction things,
how it should be. Okay, I have one more like very serious. Maybe I should have gone beforehand, but like in my right before I start transitioning, and that is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. And this is this one falls more into the like court intrigue type of plot, okay? And so Prince, I don't know, I mean, I'm always like, how do you say these names? Okay, but I'm not hurting anybody. They can't come down and yell at me about not understanding their language. Okay, so Prince Keem is essentially, he's like a one of the Empress's like great grandchildren, and and he's basically like a real fuck up. Now he is, and so it opens with her essentially calling him into a meeting and telling him that he is going to have to marry in order to lock down a treaty, because if the treaty isn't locked down, and this is all like the court stuff, right? Like she is the leader of a small confederation of planets, and there's like a space gate or a wormhole or something that is like, essentially like they're the way they get to the outside world. And that is like managed by a treaty. And if the treaty between the 7 planets isn't all locked down, then they will lose access to this thing. So whatever. And so she calls him in and is like, okay, I'm going to need you to go ahead and marry Count Janin. And he has just been widowed like in the past couple of weeks. And his first husband was one of Keem's like cousins. Keem's kind of like, this feels wrong. Like, isn't he sad? You know what I mean? And so one of the things you get right off the jump is that he is actually like, kind of everybody thinks he's like a bit of a doofus. Like he's got a space himbo vibe about him, but it's really just that he is very kind. And, you know, when he was younger, he would like do dumb stuff, like get drunk and everybody like, you know, have pictures taken with the paparazzi because he's part of the emperor's family and all that stuff. And, you know, he's like, but I haven't done stuff like that for years. But he also realizes that there is literally no way out of this. So they get married like literally the next day. And then they're instantaneously like thrown into interviews, and you know there's like a big like the I want to say like the marriage ceremony, like the paperwork signing and all this sort of stuff. And these two are so awkward with each other. Bless, you know what I mean? Because Keem is kind of like, I'm a dumb himbo and I'm just assuming that because, you know, Janin's husband just died, that he's really sad. And Janin is very much like, I have to do this for my home planet. If I don't do this, this will be very bad for my people. And he thinks that like Keen is like kind of effortlessly like cool in the way that like wealthy rich people are, right? Like he's just like, you know, this guy has never struggled with anything. So you just see them really like kind of misreading each other. Now, as this is all going on, there is a low level thing where something is really going weird with Janin's like communication system, you know, his smartwatch, right? Like and it turns out, and like any smart reader will like kind of guess what's going to happen, which is like he keeps getting weird messages forwarded to him that were really supposed to be for his husband's account, but they were linked somehow. And then once his husband died, they were supposed to shut down the account and they didn't. And he's trying to like figure out what's going on. And basically, so then like you're kind of like, okay, well, what's going to happen with this? Clearly, like something is up with this, right? Well, anyway, they sign the paperwork. The person comes to like evaluate their marriage and make sure that the treaty is all online. And real casually, this person, and I can't remember their title, you know, the whatever, is like, well, I mean, obviously your first husband was killed and they won't give you any information about it. And so I'm going to have to say right now, I'm not satisfied with the status of your marriage and the treaty cannot go forward. And it's like, these two are like, wait, what? And so now they're in like a kind of palace intrigue situation where they barely know each other, but they only can really trust each other. I thought the beginning of this book, this book is long. Like a lot of these books can be long, like fantasy, you know, you're doing a lot of world building, and this one had a lot of world building. I felt like the beginning where like you're really establishing like the two of them as like romantic partners and kind of like what's going on was stronger. In the end, there was like all the palace intrigue stuff kind of fires up, and I will admit I was like a little less interested in that in general, but I finished the whole book. I mean, it just was like it felt a little like uneven, like almost like kind of two books in one. I thought it was really great, and I also thought what you end up finding is that Janin's husband, the cousin, was like abusive. And so I just also am always really interested in like the bravery. Like he ends up being a very likable character because you just really see that like marriage was not good to him. And so to be forced immediately to marry someone else and from the same family, and then kind of be told, like, if you don't do this right, our whole planet is in danger. And just like the weight of that on him, and like the dignity with which he is like, okay, I know what I have to do right now. But then they end up finding love, and it's terrific. So that's Winter's Orbit. Now there's a second book called Ocean's Echo that is not the same characters but is in the same world. So if you like this one, you could start reading the next one.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Elle Kennedy, author of The Charlie Method. New Elle Kennedy.
Listen, New Elle Kennedy, like everybody, bring your fans out. So in this one, we've got college senior Charlotte Kingston, and she basically is living a bit of a dual life. In one version of herself, she's the perfect like sorority girl, SEM student, right? Adopted daughter of an overachieving family. But at night, she's Charlie, a risk-taking daredevil, chatting on the dating apps with two anonymous hotties.
Wait,
now,
what?
Meanwhile, Sarah,
I want it.
Will Larson is supposed to be like the boy next door, but his congressman father is always like worried that Will is going to get in some hot water and some trouble. After a big scandal at a Division I hockey program, Will's dad is going to like sort of like clean up the image of his hockey playing son. But Will is like, nobody can find out that he and his best friend Beckett sometimes share girls in the bedroom. What? And Charlie figures out, oh, I have been talking to these two hockey players, and things get steamy really fast, but those secrets are so messy and they are piling up. So Charlie, Will, and Beckett are all going to have to make some difficult decisions. Things are going to be so hard, Sarah.
Everyone, I don't know that you need any more of a sell on that. But if you would like to read The Charlie Method and maybe employ it yourself, you can read it right now in print, ebook, or audiobook. In special podcasting apps, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Elle Kennedy for sponsoring this week's episode and for keeping it spicy. I want to talk about Heather Guerre's Heart Song, which I read immediately after Heather Guerre's Preferential Treatment, which everybody knows I am obsessed with. Okay, and so here's the deal. Heart Song is that we are in some, I don't know if we're on Earth, but we're definitely like in some kind of Earth-run place in the universe. And I'm going to be clear that Heather probably tells us that in the text, but I fully have blocked that out. Point is, the heroine of this book, Thema, is a human woman who is married to like a commander of like an Earth force, like a human force, right? And he's a very, very bad dude, like super bad. Turns out that like Thema was a courtesan, like a sex worker and a singer, like a very, very famous. The structure of this world is a little bit like a Regency, even though it's obviously like in the future. She was like an opera singer, except she, whatever. There are recordings of her. She was very famous, and she was trotted around to all sorts of parties and like concerts and everything. And she was basically like a big celebrity. And then this terrible man's wife hired her to perform at his birthday party. And she came and she performed. This all happens like before the book begins. And she performed at this birthday party, and he became like obsessed with like having her. This is just a man who like wants to collect things and like claim them. And so he basically like got rid of his wife, and he kidnapped this woman and married her, and like now she is married to him, and he trots her around as like his wife and shows her off at things, but like he treats her horribly. And simultaneously they're like out in the universe like capturing alien people and alien forces, right? And he's captured in his forces, the terrible husband's forces have captured this new kind of alien. And no one really, no one's ever seen this flavor of alien before. He doesn't speak. And they can't figure out quite, like, he speaks some sort of version of Creole, but, like, they haven't, whatever that means in space. They know that from what they've captured from his ship, but he refuses to speak any language. Like, he doesn't speak any of the languages that are known. And so, but they, like, try to torture him with music, and they use, like, a record that she had recorded years ago, and he responds to it. And so then the husband sort of, like, comes into her space and is like, hey, I need you to come down into the dungeons and, like, into the, like, cells of the, like, jail.
Okay.
And I need you to speak to this alien who responds to your voice. And she's like, what the fuck? Like, I've never been down here. I don't know these people. And he's like, well, you don't have a choice. And he, like, throws her into this space. He's like, we know he speaks Creole. You also speak Creole. And he likes your music.
Sure.
Go with God. And he throws her so viciously, she, like, breaks her arm, like, while, like, in the process, right? And she starts to interact with this person, this alien being, Rakan, who is, like, he's, like, stands up on his feet. He looks like a human, but he's got scales. He's bright red. She's like, he looks like a dragon. This is Heather Guare does dragons, right? Well, it turns out that when he speaks and it's, like, impossible to hear. Like, his voice is like an orchestra. Huh. So it just sounds like he speaks on, like, multiple. It's all music. And these two become just, like, obsessed with each other. And she's ultimately like, I can get you out of here. And I can, like, steal a key, like, open a door, get you to a place where you can escape from this terrible place. And he's like, well, you know, and she's like, but please take me with you. Like, please just help me. Like, I get that, like, I'm the wife of your captor, but, like, I desperately want to be out of here. So they escape. And the problem is that he has felt this, like, he's like, we are soul bonded. Like, there is a fated mates piece here, but in the science or in the world building of this structure, if they don't consummate it, then ultimately the soul bond will, like, fade.
Okay.
And it becomes clear that he is the leader of his alien race or alien species. And so he's, like, required basically to marry one of his own. And, like, to bond with one of his own. So, like, there is a really lovely conflict built into this because these two deeply connect. They are both really broken. They are healed by each other. But at the same time, like, they can't fuck because if they do,
sure,
right, there's the
soul bond
problem. The soul bond will be concrete, made flesh. And
locked
then
in.
Also, he's got to go back and, like, lead a whole nation of aliens. These are real alien problems.
That's actually very, like, mine is, like, a similar, like, has, like, a real plot, but and then a, like, real sexy type. So
yeah, that is the last one, I think, where I have, like, an actual plot.
And then you're like, and then they bang.
The rest are, like, plot vibes.
Okay, well, let me do plot before we get to plot vibes.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to talk about, again, Chaos Reader. I'm, like, just reading the last book in any series, apparently, is the way I was approaching sci-fi romance. Like, I was at the end of the universe. So I read a book called Ruling Sitcon. It's the Clination series or the Clicanian series. I guess it's the Clicanian series by Victoria Aveline. And in this book, there are a group of humans have been kidnapped from Earth. And this is like, but they all have, I don't know, it looks like they all have kind of different books. But Sophia in this book, along with a group of humans, is going on, like, a planetary tour. Like, right, they're taking her around and she's seeing some of the different places. She's going to meet meet the aliens and some new people. And this is all, again, like, there's an empress or a queen who has, like, sent them out on this tour. Because it's almost like humans are like a status symbol almost. So when at the end of the previous book, I think in the previous book, they must be kidnapped or like, again, I wasn't quite sure because I haven't read the previous books, but she was hostage with a bunch of humans in this one place, and they all get away except for her. She's like the last one. And so she ends up being taken captive, and in this place, the grumpy, sexy warrior king, and his name is Siktand, Sikhand, again, Sikhand, has taken her hostage, and he is essentially planning. He's like kind of in a pickle. Like she's a political pawn, but it has to make him and his people look strong and not weak. And as soon as, like, pretty quickly after she's taken captive by him, the queen or the empress dies, and now there's like some sort of question about what's going to happen. So there's like all this unrest. And in the meantime, though, he has put her in like this tower that turns out to be like the queen's quarters. And he's not married. He had like a fiance, and she like dumped him, and, you know, kind of Elizabeth Lowell vibes. Now he's too sad, and he'll never find the right woman / alien. And what she doesn't realize is that like there is like a secret mirror where he can watch her. And this man just loves to fucking watch her. He's like obsessed with her. Like she takes like her makeup and the things that they give her to make herself beautiful, and she's like drawing with them. And, you know, like a thing that's like kind of been a problem for her is when they were abducted by aliens, they did some like sort of scam that like fixed all of your illnesses, but at the same time like erased all her tattoos. And so she is kind of like, if you're gonna keep me here, you know, how, you know, and so it's like, it's got like a real, like, them getting to know each other vibe. And, you know, of course he's like possessive and grumpy and jealous, and she's like the most perfect, beautiful thing. And so and then, listen, Sarah, I forgot how much I love this one thing in an alien romance. I'm so simple. I'm like such a basic bitch.
Tell me. I want to hear.
These aliens don't kiss with their mouths, and he has to do research on kissing.
Amazing. And you love a character, you love a hero who like has no frame of reference for.
Yes.
It's so fascinating to me, Jen, because you don't like a virgin hero, but you love a hero who's like, I don't know, I've never taken a bath.
Yes. Right. Right, exactly. Like, but so it's actually great. So then
you contain multitudes, is what I'm saying.
I know.
Friend.
So he's like, turns out kissing's fucking great. And then like the part where she gives him a blowjob, like, of course, like in his society, no one has ever, you know, like that's just not really done. And he's like, this is amazing. And then he's got a tail, and he's like throwing her around with it. And you know what? They don't really have sex till the end, but the whole back end of this book is them like making out. And I liked it a lot. So I feel like I might go back and read some of these. Victoria Aveline, she has a ton of sci-fi romances in general. She just seems to really, this is where she lives now.
All right, what else you got?
I have 2 more that are in like more of the slutty sci-fi side.
Oh, all right. Well, I've got 2 that are on that side as well.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to save the best for last.
It'd be amazing for our bests were the same. Okay, but go ahead.
We're going to talk about Heather Fox.
Okay.
Who wrote a series. So this series, if you are an Ice Planet Barbarians girly, this is it for you. You want to go here next. And the series is called Mates for the Rascarons. And the first book is called Stranded, and there are 8 books in this series. It begins in a similar, you will find it familiar, the way that this setup of this book. Okay. So, Liv, who is the heroine, and 11 other women are on a spaceship headed for Alpha Colony, which is like a place where Liv's sister has gone missing, and she is supposed to be like there looking for information about her sister's disappearance. But her, unfortunately, and 11 other women end up crash landing on a planet they didn't know existed, another jungle planet, actually. But I did not listen. I didn't read these books intentionally. They just both have jungles in them, and everything on this planet is deadly, including the hero's penis.
Listen,
no.
This is everyone who is like, I listen to all your serious shit, but this is what I'm really here for.
So they land on this planet. Wait, Jen, this is really serious.
Okay, sorry, right.
This is real romance shit that's happening here. They crash land on this planet. Liv goes to sleep because she's tired. I don't know. Doesn't matter. She starts to dream. And she dreams of this man, this like big alien dude who just wants to go down on her.
That's all. Listen.
And then he does. Like in the dream, he's like super hot for her, right? Like they have these like very intense, like, so then she's like, she wakes up. She's like, that's so weird. Like, I don't know what that was, right? And then like, she just thinks like, okay, I just had like a sex dream about an alien. And she like tells her friend, she's like, I know we crash landed on this planet and this is all very weird, but like, I just had like the craziest sex dream. And the friend is like, well, at least you got that, right? Like, good job. So, okay, here's the thing. Then it splits. This is why dual POV is so important. Then we switch to Gregor's point of view. And Gregor is like, he wakes up and he's like, holy shit, I dreamed. So that means my fated mate is nearby.
Oh, he knows what it means.
Because in their like little world, I don't want to get too deep into the how do humans get involved in this kind of, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Just stop.
No.
Everybody. I don't want to hear your questions.
I don't want to hear your nonsense. Yeah.
Save them for Severance. So, okay. He's basically like, holy shit, I dreamed of having sex with somebody in my dreams, and that means it's on. Fated mate nearby.
Got it.
I gotta find her. So he basically like turns to his buddy and he's like, I gotta fucking find her. Something's up. And wouldn't you know, Jen, that this whole group of aliens is like headed out into the jungle to like search out, because they're like, well, weirdly, something crashed like far in the distance and we better go check that out.
Sure.
So they stumble upon these 11 women and Gregor is like, holy shit, there she is. And she's like, whoa, Nelly, you are an alien, man. And I have shit to do. My sister is missing. I got to get to Alpha Colony. So then they go to sleep again. And then they just like, again, like kind of, he's like all over her in the dreams. They're very into each other, consensual dream sex. And then like she wakes up and she's like, okay, but still, like, you're an alien. And he's like, no, but we're fated mates. And so this goes on for a little while he is simultaneously, he and his, like, people are all, like, protecting these, like, weakling humans from alien jungle shit. And ultimately, the big question is, like, when are they going to do it and not be asleep? And I won't spoil that for you, but it does happen.
Yeah. So and then I would assume that all of the other people get a chance too.
You know, I did not. This is not the series I fell into.
Oh, okay.
But yes, as I understand it, Mates for the Rascarans is 8 books for now. I'm going to guess it's 11.
Sure. Who knows? Maybe there's more. No, I just looked the most.
Well, yeah, it'll be like Ice Planet Barbarians,
right,
where then suddenly they happen upon
another
ship
ship
of the island. Yeah. Right, exactly. But it's a good time. You guys will have a nice time with them.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Chandra Wicke, author and photographer of the Happily Ever After Society, a book about romance novels.
Well, I'm very excited about this book, and not just because I'm featured in it, but this is such a cool idea. Chandra has photographed and interviewed 40 romance novelists, both legendary authors like Jane Ann Krentz and Julia Quinn, to new authors who like Alyssa Sussman and Susan Lee. Adriana's in this book. Jeannie Lynn is in this book. I'm in this book. Christina Lauren is in it. And they're beautiful, beautiful photographs. And the experience of doing this was so cool. Chandra rented a house in LA, and me and Allie Hazelwood and Julie Soto and Adriana went out to this beautiful staged house in LA, and she took gorgeous photographs of all of us and then interviewed us about the genre, about why we write. It's so cool. And it supplemented that sort of a portion of the book, maybe 2/3 of the book. And the other third of the book is a friend of hers who is also a photographer, has read beautiful scenes from romance novels and then photographed models and actors in those scenes as though they're like the real life people coming to life in those scenes. It's such a cool idea. This is a Kickstarter, so it needs to be funded in order for it to exist. So if you are interested, it's going to be a gorgeous coffee table book. There's also an ebook version and other things that you can support as part of the Kickstarter. But you can head over to Chandra's Kickstarter and hit the chapter title right now to go over and order the book and be a part of the Kickstarter, or be sure to visit show notes to learn more about it. But it's super exciting, and I think it's going to be a gorgeous book.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And it sounds like if, getting ahead and getting in on this might mean that this could be a great gift you can give to somebody, a romance fan in your life, right, for when it eventually comes out. And I think this sounds really fun. So thank you to the Happily Ever After Society book Kickstarter and Chandra Wiki for sponsoring this week's episode. Okay, so I am going to talk about Cynthia Sachs, who has an entire cyborg series. Now, I am going to talk about Raw Desires, which came out pretty recently, and this is part of the Cyborg Unity series. Now, everybody, I would like to say this. Back like 10 years ago, read the beginning of this series and like went back and read the first one and was really like, it was a different time. And I think it like checked content warnings, and there was like sexual assault on page, and I just was like, that was not what I really needed at this moment in time. So I'm not going to talk about that series, and I'm just going to say that like as a warning. If you are like, I'm going to go all the way back to the very beginning, just be mindful that like there's been a lot of evolution and the sexual assault is not the characters towards each other, but like the cyborgs suffer it from their like bad handlers. And then at one point, and I was just like, whoa. So in Raw Desires though, okay, Raw is the name of this cyborg. And there's like and again, I don't know exactly how it works because cyborgs are like human, kind of a hybrid of like a human and a machine. But there is like a genetic match component. And he hears that he has a genetic match, and he goes to find her. And this is the reason I picked this one is because I felt bad that it like made me laugh. The little tagline at the beginning is like, his human female is attempting to kill him. This cyborg finds that adorable. And I was like, yeah, I think I probably would too.
Adorable.
So
nice.
Her name is Tatu, and she has come from a planet where, and I think this is there's like a humanoid alliance that in the first series, they're the bad guys. And the humanoid alliance has essentially like created these cyborgs and essentially like enslaved them. And then in the first series, like the cyborgs are trying to get free, and there's like different levels of cyborgs. And in this one, she has come from a planet where the humanoid alliance like essentially killed everyone on planet. And she has made it her goal to essentially like take revenge by killing cyborgs. And she's like, I know I'm going to die too, but this is the only thing I can do, even though I come from this peaceful planet. And my parents would never have wanted me to live a life of revenge. She's like, I cannot. This is the only way I can manage my feelings. So I love this. I'm sorry.
Nice.
So
Perfect.
She is basically like being held now, like they captured her, and she's being held in like a cell, and she's under like high security alert because she keeps trying to kill cyborgs. And so Raw is the name of the, right? And he's like, she's my one, I'm going to go to her. And so he opens the door, and she like basically like has created explosions inside, like using like shit from the walls and stuff in the wires.
Love it.
And so she like sets off the detonations, and he hears the like click, and he like jumps on her to protect her, even though he basically like loses an arm and like, you know, it tears all of his clothes off.
Nice.
And she is like, what? I was trying to kill you. And he's like, that's adorable, but like you're my person. And so then they have sex, and he convinces her that, like, essentially like explains to her that the cyborgs had been enslaved and that like she did not, you know, that he will help her kill the real bad guy, who is like the, you know, the guy in the Humanoid Alliance who, you know, Captain Odom or whatever, who was the one who actually like ordered this. And so now she has like a real goal and like a partner in her revenge. And also they just fuck like crazy all the time. You know, and these cyborgs have like the biggest dicks. Like, you know.
Of course they do. Because if you were building a cyborg, you're not going to build them with a small dick.
And in this world, like their semen is full of like nanobots.
Sure.
And so if you're
That sounds sure.
and so if
This
you're
is not like a microplastic.
if you're like injured or whatever, and you can have sex,
perfect, so they can fuck when they like,
and then
listen,
that fucking
perfect.
heals you in this universe. So anyway, this cyborg unity is like a newer kind of series, and I think would be fine. So that one was called
Amazing.
Raw Desires.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure you're ready for this.
I don't know if you're ready for my last one,
but I would
Game
like
on.
to bring you back to Laura and Donner.
I knew you were going to go to Laura and Donner. I was like, I hope you did. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. For those of you who are uninitiated or came to romance before in the post Alora's Cave world, Jen and I would like to discuss the deep magic with you. Back in the time before Kindle Unlimited, before there were only 5 traditional publishers left in the world, there was the golden age of independently published romance novels. And they were not published by one author in a one-off situation. They were published by small presses, including a legendary press called Alora's Cave that published exclusively fucking bananas.
Yes.
One-handed reads.
Correct.
That were guaranteed to be unhinged and that you would not ever confess to read it.
Like, even now, I just had like a really like a flash of like a Jade Black book, and I was like,
oh yeah,
I gotta get under my bed now.
So listen, I did not do the research on Alora's Cave before, but we should, for the Trailblazers, try to find Alora.
Yes.
Whoever that is. But we should have Loran on, because she was certainly like a big piece of this puzzle, this like aughts puzzle of like wacky, crazy books. But that publisher is gone, and Loran, but during that time, Loran was like the author of like hybrid men, cyborgs. There were like characters who were made purely of metal, so I guess those are also cyborgs, but still, like, do you remember she had a whole series where like they were all their DNA was spliced with animal DNA, so they like had like feline features or canine features. Like, these books, there were no rules.
No.
Nobody, listen, Twitter couldn't handle what was going on in Alora's Cave back then.
Same for all of us, honestly.
So sadly, Alora's Cave died a sad death. It was exclusively ebooks, and actually, I was with Rebecca Romney about a couple weeks ago for an event, and we were talking about Alora's Cave and how the like great sadness is that it is not, to her knowledge, nobody has cataloged the full. Like, there's no catalog of it, right? Because the series, the line died, and with it, like all the books themselves, unless people put them back online. Now, listen, there are some things I need to tell you about Loran Donner, which is if you can't handle like the male scent, this is not.
No,
these are not
listen,
books for you. These are hyper.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why I saved it for last. That's they do read real fast. They go down real easy.
Oh gosh.
Jen, would you like me to tell you about Cathian?
Yeah, obviously. Sure.
Cathian, the first book, and also she has like 42 different series.
Oh yeah, right.
And so like, listen, this is book number 1 of the Vorge crew, and this is a spaceship. What you need to know is the Vorge is a spaceship.
Sure.
Okay, that's what we're doing. Okay, so Nara Barnes, our heroine, has her own spaceship and her own crew, her tiny little crew. They've been like captured by bad dudes, and they've given a choice. They are given a choice between jail or like a sex auction.
Sure.
And so we meet them again, start in the right place, leave out all the boring bits. We meet them in the sort of like jail like holding area where they've been given this option. And Nara's like, I don't love these options. And then she's sort of like quietly speaking to her second in command, and she mentions the fact that she hasn't had sex in a year. And when she does this like alien materializes next to her and says, a female alien materializes next to her and says, "Hey, did I hear correctly that you haven't had sex in a year?" And she says, "I think that's kind of a personal question." And she's like, no, because here's the deal. The captain of our ship is in a bit of a pickle. And he thought he wasn't going to go into heat for another month. But instead, he's going into heat like right now.
Oh, no.
And we've sent word back to our home planet that this is happening, but they can't get women here for him to go into heat with for 6 days. So what we need from you is we need you to like let yourself like basically come and like be with him for 6 days.
Sure.
Until women from the planet get here. And then we'll let you go free and clear. And she's like, oh, wait a second. Well, what does me not having had sex in a year have to do with this? And they're like, well, the way our species works, or the way the captain's species works, is that he has to feed on you. And like, the fact that you haven't had sex in a year will make you more like healthy for him. Sure. Like, or not healthy, but like you'll be like full of nutrients is what I mean.
You're like a tomato right off the vine.
Exactly. It's like you're fresh picked, organic.
Sure.
Everyone, headphones in. I forgot to say that at the beginning of all of this. Okay. Jen?
Nope. Sarah? Nope.
Okay. Oh, wait. I forgot that the person who does this is the cook. The ship's cook, which of course, right? Because nutrients.
Sure.
So here's the way this works. This man, Cathian, the eponymous Cathian, has entered is now in heat. He is to feed. It is what you think. He needs to go down on her over and over and over again until his body fills up with all of the nutrients from her. At which point he will be able to get somebody pregnant. Right. And breed. Now, when Nara shows up, everybody's like, well, wait a second, but she is a human. And we have no science to tell us whether humans can even survive this.
No. He's like, no, she's a tomato fresh off the vine.
We don't know if humans can tolerate this much oral sex. Anyway, 6 days pass, and Nara does great.
Oh, boy.
And then the problem is, though, that he's like, this is terrific. I'm down. Except, of course, he's an alien. He's like the prince of whatever. He has to go back to his home planet.
Sure.
Can he bring a human? I mean, same as it ever was. Listen, you're not in this for the plot, everyone.
No, absolutely
You're
not.
in this because you're looking for, like, full banana.
Well, yes.
Ripe from the tree.
Correct. All right. I also have a whole bunch of bananas for you, everybody. Which I had forgotten about this. Okay, so I read a lot of these sci-fi romances, and so I was like, okay, I went back through my Kindle and I was just trying to figure out what have I read, what's in there, and I had completely forgotten about a series called Space Army Recruits by Kinley Gray. Have we ever talked about these books?
No.
Well, Sarah, that's because they are fucking bonkers. And I would like to be clear to everybody that the plot of these are almost like erotica more than even erotic romance, okay?
Yeah.
But we all deserve nice things. And but it actually also is like, I don't know why, like, it's so funny to me. Okay, so the book opens. Okay, so there are 3 of these. Space Army Recruits Day 1, Space Army Recruits Day 8. Now, these 2 books came out a couple weeks apart in 2018. And I had read them at that point and then was like, oh, I wonder if she ever updated these. And then a 3rd book, Space Army Recruits Day 15, came out in 2023. So every once in a while, this lady's like, let's see what these people are up to. And I'm hopeful that we'll get day 30 because there's like a real hard deadline on this plot. Okay, so Rory is a Space Army recruit, and he is on the spaceship, and he essentially will do anything to like become a Space Army full-time employee. Anything. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't want to go back to his little shitty town on whatever his little shitty planet is, right? So he is just like, I am in it to win it. And I will do whatever it takes. And so he also, though, is like kind of one of those people who's like, he's like smarter. He's a little willing to like break the rules. And at the beginning of the book, they're all standing in lines to like get into like the all the recruits are standing in line to get into like the shower room and, get their new uniforms or whatever. And he notices that down the hallway, there is like a officer's, Space Army full-time employees bathroom. And so he's like, well, I'm going to go in there and I'll just jump the line. And then if somebody's like, what are you supposed to do in here? He's like, I'll just play stupid. So he goes in there and he's like, this is so much better than waiting in that line. And then he overhears some Space Army officers talking. Mm-hmm. And what they're talking about is how the real end of the line test for the Space Army recruits to become Space Army full-time employees, that's not what it's really called, but it's making me laugh to say that, is an orgy on day 30. And the reason for the orgy on day 30 is that that's how you can really tell how flexible people are, how nutritious they are, whether or not they're like willing to do whatever it takes, right? Like how well they work together as a team. So Rory is like, I don't
wait, but is it a like,
no, listen,
poly?
Wait, yeah, Sarah.
Okay,
wait, listen.
Is it a commune?
Yeah, Sarah. Wait, I'm getting there.
I'm so excited. I know. I'm jumping in. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So on the 30-day challenge, Rory is like, listen. And so what happens is he goes back and he's been assigned a bunk, and there's like 7 or 8 of them in like one little room, and that's his squad. And he tells them all, he's like, gather round. I have important. I'm sorry. He's like, I have important intel about what we're going to need to do to like become Space Army full-time employees. He's like, we are going to Space Army. So he's basically like, we are going to have an orgy and be really good at it. We have to be good at orgy. That's how we win.
You're Our job has to be orgy.
And he's like, and I don't think I'm ready. I, for example, have only had sex with women. So I am going to need to practice having sex with one of you, my bunkmates who are a man. And so basically this entire book is them practicing orgy. And sometimes it's like, and then like, but it's honestly like really sweet because like, and I can't believe I just said that about Space Army recruits. But like, you know, he approaches his, like one of his bunkmates named Mark. And he is like, Mark, you are gay and I have no experience. Like, would you be willing to fuck me in the ass? Because I'm going to need to practice for orgy. And Mark's like, I don't know. I kind of have to be like into people, like not just, you know, it's not really how I roll.
And he's like, well, you're going to fail orgy.
Exactly. Mark's and he's like, basically like, I'm demisexual. And Rory's like, okay, I respect that.
I guess we should get to know each other.
And then like there's like one guy who is like, you know, he is like, I don't want to have anything to do with your crazy ideas. But of course, like they're, you know, all going to get with him. And then there's like the girl he really likes. And so basically, I just need you to understand that like on day 1 and day 8 and day 15, they're just practicing orgy. And that is the entire plot of Space Army Recruits.
Oh my God.
And I just think, listen, everybody, we all need to like, it's on Kindle Unlimited. I need you all to just like, you know, if you're at all interested in Space Army Recruits becoming Space Army full-time employees, I'm going to need everybody to read them so that she sees that and is like, oh, I better write day 30 where they all graduate to, you know, back to boring Space Army.
Wowzer.
Yeah, it's really, I completely forgotten about this series until I found it. And then to discover that she had written a new one, I was like, what a treat.
Perfect.
What a treat.
Perfect. Listen, we have done the job for you this week here at the Fated Mates. There's a little something for everyone.
Oh, wait, can I say one other thing? I have been reading Murderbot, which is, there's no romance in Murderbot. Murderbot is not interested in romance, but it is great. And if you're at all interested in voice, V.E. Schwab recommended it. It's pretty terrific. Yeah. It's a good audiobook.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that also, you know, there are plenty of sci-fi podcasts out there, I'm sure.
Sure.
And you should head over there.
They're probably going to want us on. They're going to be like,
if you host a sci-fi podcast and you would like us to come on and talk about Space Army and
your job is orgy.
Space Army and Lauren Donner.
Yeah.
We are here for you.
Correct. Listen, a romance podcast
you don't
job
know.
is never
you
done.
don't know what's over in our end of this pool. It's a lot.
Amazing.
Listen, everyone, we hope we gave you a little bit of joy this week. We hope you were not like Bluetooth connected to something dangerous there at the end where it got dicey. But we do love you, and we do hope that you head out and enjoy your time wherever this episode has taken you. I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. You can find us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our show notes where you can find a list of every book we spoke about in this episode. You can just download them all, one right after another. That's what we do for you. That's a service we provide for you here at Fated Mates. You can do that at fatedmates.net. Just hit show notes for that. You can also find us online. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Threads. We're on Instagram. Jen is over on Blue Sky. Don't forget to sign up for Jen's, what's it called? Blueberry? Strawberry?
Beehive, Sarah.
Beehive. Don't forget to sign up for Jen's Beehive. That sounds dirty.
I know. I think I just have to call it a newsletter. I'm like my non-Substack.
All right. We're putting it in the show notes. Go do that.
Sign up for Sarah's while you're at it.
Also, don't forget to sponsor if that Chandler Wick romance novel book sounded like it was for you. I am one of the authors that is featured in it, and you should you can support her on Kickstarter. And I don't know, enjoy your time this week with space because it's
Sure.
all we have.
It's all we have.
But we do love you, and we'll be back next week with, I'm looking at the topic, another wacky one, I think, probably.
Oh, yeah, right. Sure. I think it's going to be a fun one. We're just going to let it
listen,
lie.
we're just trying to be as wacky. We're trying to give you as much joy as possible. That's our goal.
That's our goal.